Hello everybody, today we're going to be talking about the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight that just happened last night. I was one of many that watched the fight live at 4 a.m. for me, obviously different time zones, minutes at different times for different people. But yeah, 4 a.m. for me, didn't stay up, I just set an alarm, woke up for it. I'm glad I didn't stay up all those hours and just simply woke up after an alarm, because the whole thing was just utterly pathetic. I mean, I didn't think much going into it. I don't think it was going to be the best boxing show ever. Mike was not going to put on his best performance we've ever seen, and I think anyone with a brain knew that all of his training footage was probably edited and altered and maybe even old in order to promote the fight. But what I didn't expect was him to completely gas out by the third round and only throw a total of, how many was it? Like 18 punches? And this was an 8-round fight, meaning that Mike Tyson landed literally 2 or 3 punches every single round, effectively landing 1 punch per minute that he stood in the ring. It was just a very weird fight to watch in general. Even Jake, one of the meanest and just most hated men on the planet that does not care about what he says or does, who he fights, who he beats up, who he puts on a canvas. Even he didn't go as far as knocking out Mike Tyson. They literally stood and hugged and bowed to each other for the final 30 seconds of the fight and barely threw any punches, just the occasional jab here and there towards the latter half of the fight, because neither one could or wanted to do any real damage to each other. And I don't think the plan was to do any real damage at all since the moment that they made the contracts for this fight. The goal was obviously just secure as much money as possible in as little time as possible, with the least amount of damage received. I mean, Jake made a guaranteed 40 million, Mike made 20 million, which is also crazy, by the way. Jake Paul is worth more than Mike Tyson. The world we live in. And so 60 million total, plus, I don't know, whatever extras on top of that, if there are any. Those guys just made more in, 18 minutes or whatever it was than the majority of the world makes in their entire lifetime. So you really can't knock it. Like, as a business move, brilliant. I think a lot of people already knew this, right? Stand there for less than 20 minutes and make enough to feed an entire generation, a family, for life. You can't knock it, really. But yeah, as I said, it's just a bit sad. Like, obviously, smart move. Obviously, Mike signed up to it. He knew what he was getting into. Obviously, his goal was simply to collect some money and walk out, which he did. They got the job done. But it just felt a bit weird that he felt like he needed to go and do that, to subject himself to being essentially humiliated in front of millions and millions of people, for the sake of collecting a bag. But hopefully Jake doesn't take this win and start saying loads of stupid things. I'm sure he will. I don't know why I'm adding this to the video. I'm sure he will. This is a Jake thing to do, right? In the heat of the moment, bow to Mike, hug him, say that he's the greatest of all time, tell the audience he's a legend and that you didn't want to do any damage to him in the press conference, etc., etc. But in a week's time from now, Jake will be on podcast saying, I beat Mike Tyson, the best to ever do it. I'm the best boxer in the world. I'm going to get a world title one day. And then he'll be like, Canelo is who I'm going to fight next. And then he'll end up fighting some retired boxer or some journeyman or something, or just some MMA guy in the future. And, rinse and repeat. He plays everyone. Every single fight that Jake does is catered to him, has an advantage to him, and the goal is obviously just to make as much money as possible while receiving the least amount of damage possible. The only person to beat him is Tommy Fury, which one is laughable because Tommy Fury is not a real boxer. He is a reality TV star that just clings on to the Fury name. I feel like that fight really only happened because maybe 1, Jake underestimated him, and 2, he was kind of peer pressured into it. Everybody was asking him to fight a real boxer, so he felt like maybe he needed to do it. And I don't think the rematch between those two happens anytime soon. Also, shame on Netflix for hosting this. Obviously, Netflix, Jake, and maybe even Mike, some of the most money-hungry people, were behind the scenes of creating this event. And Netflix, obviously being one of the biggest companies in the world, worth 350 billion, would surely make sure that they invest in some stable networking and servers to ensure this event goes through smoothly and nobody's complaint. Wrong! All wrong. The event spent more time on the buffering screen and saying Netflix has encountered a problem than it actually showed the fight. If you checked Down Detector at all, it was likely showing that Netflix was down with thousands of reports in the past few minutes. Twitter was flooded with people saying that you couldn't log in, or people screenshotting a buffering screen. Maybe they just thought nobody was gonna watch this shit. Maybe they realized halfway through, after all the backlash, how bad this whole thing was and thought nobody's going to watch this. We've messed up, and they just didn't invest in good servers. But nope. Yep, they didn't anticipate all those numbers, I guess, and yeah, it was bad. I probably had to refresh. No joke, I probably pressed F5 like, I want to say between 50 to 100 times. It was quite a lot. I even ended up watching the fight on Twitter through somebody else live streaming it, which, by the way, 4.8 million people also ended up doing, because it was somehow better quality and more reliable than the actual Netflix stream for me. Not sure how, but for the first like 4 or 5 rounds, some random guy on Twitter, was streaming the fight, and it actually, the stream survived for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe, before getting shut down. And that guy gained like 20 to 30,000 followers by doing that. And then Twitter revoked his access to be able to even live stream after he did that, which is pretty funny. So I missed half of it because of Netflix's terrible connection. It wasn't just the final fight. The entire undercard was also just extremely laggy. Obviously, most people probably tuned in right at the end to watch Jake and Mike, but the entire undercard, which, like, for certain had less viewership, possibly even 50% of the viewership, still, the Netflix servers could not handle what was likely just a couple million people being logged in. How? No idea. You'd think that a company that raises its subscription services plan price year on year is able to reinvest some of that money into making the service and platform as a whole better, and, you know, just making sure that you do the bare minimum, which is allow your users to watch the content that they're actually paying for. Like, that's the minimum that I would expect. If I'm paying for Netflix, I expect to be able to actually watch the content that Netflix is providing, but no, couldn't do that. I bet there were so many refunds, so many cancellations from Netflix last night. I bet it's absolute mayhem in those offices. And if they plan to do more stuff like this and become like a serious contender in the live streaming, like, sports place, they need to seriously invest in better architecture, better servers, because it's just not acceptable at all. You know, things like Sky Sports, DAZN, they have better infrastructure on their live events than Netflix does, and they're not worth near as much. Yeah, that basically sums up the whole event. It was a shit show from the beginning. Netflix servers were bad. The fight itself was bad. The production, bad. Also, Amanda Serrano got robbed. That was also the real fight. I think everyone is in agreement that the Amanda Serrano versus Katie Taylor fight was the actual real fight of the event. That one was good. But yeah, she was robbed. And so was everyone else. Everyone that watched this, robbed. Even if you watched it illegally. Robbed of our time. But that was obviously the plan, you know, since the beginning. That's Jake Paul's thing, right? Yeah, time and time again, we all get trapped into watching these big events that he puts on, and then we all feel like we've been robbed. Unless you're someone who sticks a bit of money on it. Speaking of which, the Drake curse happened again. Drake put like 355k on Mike to win. The Drake curse is real. Maybe that's why Mike lost. Everyone's going to start blaming Drake soon. I actually haven't seen any like memes or comments about how Drake bet on this, but I'm sure we'll see some in the coming days when people are like, oh yeah, I forgot. Drake bet on Mike to win. So yeah, that's it. That's the reason he lost. He certainly didn't look like the Mike we've all been seeing in training footage and stuff. So yeah, maybe that's it. That's just what the Drake curse does. Yeah, that's basically it. Like, there's nothing positive to say about the whole thing. Yep, that's it. Actually, I guess there was one good thing, which was that I managed to make a meme out of it for social media. Obviously, I started my new job, told a few of you that recently. I managed to make a meme out of it to promote some Black Friday deals that the company I work for has going, which was, that's a win, I suppose. Which is just the image of Mike slapping Jake that was circulating around social media from the weigh-ins and stuff. So yeah, that's it. That's the only thing that really managed to surface from this was just good memes all around. Yeah, all right. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.